Hey everybody, Nevan again. Thought I'd spice up the content a little bit and do a tier list on the all the cards in the game. I'm gonna do it separate for like one for shadow character, one for shadow strategy, and so on and so forth. Kind of rank them in their own just overall deck because there's just so many cards in the game. I think you need to judge them based off their own decks. So the system I'm going with, I thought long and hard about this one. So I'm going by a three ranking system from 1 to 5. So the initial one will be what will the top effects, like strength level, be? How good is the top part of the card? The one you play with the event dice or any of the, army, well, in this case, character die. The second rating will be how good is the combat effect. And this is strictly in their own right. So all of the um, same combats will all have the same rating. They get ranked based on just how good the combat is. And the third rating is a little harder to explain, but I think it'll make sense. Is basically how flexible is the card. So I think this is going to be an interesting ranking personally because the some cards are just very good at one thing but terrible at the other, and that matters. And that's why I think it's important to incorporate it because, just for a quick example, you know, Cruel Weather, many people consider it to be one of the best cards in the game. It is, but how flexible is it? Like, how good is the combat if the top part can't be played? How good is the card overall? This is like an overall rating, judging it based on all aspects. And I'm really curious to see how the ratings are going to end up. So here are the kind of rankings. You see the minimum will be 3 because if you get a score of 1 on each category, and then the maximum will be 15. I don't think there's going to be a lot of 15s. We shall see. So that's why I decided to make S ranking a 14 or 15 because flexibility, a lot of these things can vary. So I put most of them in order of their combats. That way I only have to explain the combat part once. So let's begin with Balrog of Moria. So the Balrog's interesting because it's when playing kind of a standard Java game, the corruption is not really in your control. You can choose to kind of commit to corruption if you like. It's just not usually a very consistent method. So Balrog's top effect is strictly corruption, and it has a chance to fail. If you draw an eye, it doesn't do anything, which is really bad. It's basically a tile draw card that you need to not only kind of telegraph, but it could just fail. With that in mind, the effect is decent. I mean, adding an extra tile draw card isn't terrible. However, due to it being so limited in its timing of the game, I'm giving its top effect a straight up 1. So if we're judging 3 as average, I think it's a 1. Now, the effect itself, I think, is a 2. But again, I'm incorporating the fact that if once the fellowship moves or declares past a certain point, it just doesn't work, which sucks. Like, you're trapped with it then. Okay, for the combat, Durin's Bane, so very limited, where you have the initial 3 coin flips to see if you do damage before the fight, which is really, really good. So the effect itself is like a 5, because it's basically an N. It's 3 coin flips. That's very good. However, due to its limited nature, it only helps in Lorien, or if you're doing like a Moria kind of sortie or whatever, trying to retake the stronghold. It's so limited that the 5, I think, will get bumped down to a 3. I think it's average because the effect is just so strong. I think that's fair. And then, obviously, it's the internet. These are my opinions. I don't think anybody plays this game the same. You'll be hard pressed to find that. So these are all just my opinions, if it's not obvious enough. So for the third ranking, flexibility, basically the same concept. Again, with the flexibility, it's like what are the odds I can play this as an event or combat? You know, what, like, if I have the card in the Fellowship's Pass Moria, how easy is it to play the combat? It's not. It's not easy at all because, again, it's one stronghold. So I think on flexibility, it will also receive a 1, which brings its rating to a 5. So Balrog, our very first card, is going into the F tier. Not great. Again, it can make a big difference, but it's just so limited overall. Like, you'd rather not draw it unless you're in that specific scenario, which I don't think is a sign of a good card. All right, next up, Cruel Weather. So, needless to say, the effect is a 5. It's not even close. You just get to bring them back a whole dice of movement. I don't think there's anything else to say, really. It's just the extremely powerful effect. You will cycle the character deck strictly to find this one card. That's how good its effect is. Cruel as Death, the combat. This is a very underrated combat, and I think it's only underrated because of the cards it's attached to. You might see it once per game with Palantir, maybe. Cruel Weather if they're already in Mordor. But if you don't know, Cruel as Death is you forfeit 2 Nazgul leadership to hit on 5s on your combat. Technically, you don't actually need like extra Nazgul for this to work, and that's why it's so strong, because on 5 dice, if you're hitting on 5s, you should get a hit on your combat once you play this card. So if you have 5 leadership, you don't need, or I'm sorry, 6 leadership. If you're at 6 leadership, it's very easy to give yourself an extra Nazgul. You technically don't need a full 5. If you're at 6, you'll go down the 4 with the card. You should get a hit on the combat, and then you get to roll 4 dice on your leader reroll to hit on 6s. I think it's extremely underrated, really good. It's basically like half of a desperate battle with little to no downside again. But again, we're relying on statistics here. But I give Cruel as Death, considering I'm only talking about shadow character cards, a 5. I think it's an extremely potent combat, considering you're the aggressor. Like, it just helps you win fights. In a field battle, it makes all your dice coin flips. It's really strong. For its flexibility rating, I think this card is extremely flexible. Now, it has the downside of... So, if you're thinking about it in the Java, like, Discord terms of, I need to play it to keep them out of Mordor, it doesn't seem very flexible, because, yeah, it can be limited. But if you stay more open-minded on this card, put them back into a stronghold, right? Stuff like that. I think this is actually extremely flexible, and the combat itself can be played at any point. Even with 5 Nazgul going down to 3, I still think Cruel as Death is an extremely strong effect. So I give its flexibility a 5 as well. So we have our first 15 already. So we have a F and then we have an S. Starting off strong. Isildur's Bane, a tile draw card. Yeah, I mean, tile draw cards are kind of a meme, but the Isildur's specifically, doing corruption straight to Frodo is extremely strong. This card alone will make them fear taking corruption in the 7-8 range, just because of just how potent it is if you get a 3. Yeah, the benefit, Gollum can't do any tricky things with it. Yeah, it's a consistent card if you don't draw an eye, of course. So it is a good effect. So I think I'd give Isildur's a 4. And then for the combat, again, I'm doing all the combats in a row, so we already know Cruel as Death is a 5. So flexibility-wise, I think, again, like when you draw this card, you're not unhappy. Like, you can play Cruel as Death efficiently in a combat, or you can take your gamble and try to draw a tile and just do a lot of damage to Frodo. I think its flexibility is a 4, only because it goes down a peg, because when they're in Mordor, drawing an eye is actually extremely detrimental. Like, it kind of loses its top half effectiveness when they're in Mordor. It can make the difference, but it's a gamble. So with all that in mind, it comes out to a 13. So this Isildur's Bane will be an A. And we go straight to Orc Patrol. Orc Patrol is easily the worst tile draw card, not even close. It has all the flaws of Isildur's Bane without the benefit of just hurting Frodo. Honestly, I think I'd give the top effect a 2. It's good, but usually you're at the detriment of hurting yourself by getting rid of eyes. Yeah, I give it a 2. I think it's slightly below average in its performance just because of how swingy it can be. Without the big benefit of Asealidor's being able to just no way to reduce it. Uh, Combat is 5, of course. Flexibility, same concept as Asealidor's. It sucks in Mordor, but flexibility wise, you can play it pretty much at any point, both in combat and out on the pre Mordor. So I give that a 4. So Orc Patrol comes out to an 11. So it's still a B. So it's still a good card. It's, you know, we consider B to be kind of slightly above average overall. C is below average. Palantir of Orthanc. Right. Palantir is a unique card. It can feel really bad as free people, for sure. Uh, yeah, I think its effect is just so strong because the effect itself is strong because it has 2 effects. One is obviously the card. If you spend Palantirs, you get to draw a new card. That's very strong. But the second effect is you basically steal a ring and a die from free people. And considering you typically have almost double their dice, that's you're trading 1 dice of yours for a die and a ring from free people. It seems kind of ridiculous, but it does have that downside of if you just don't roll Palantirs, it's bad. But and also of course they can kill it with a will, but a will is really strong. It's the strongest dice result in the game. So honestly, I give its effect a 5. It's so many people will kill it immediately, as they should, because it's just that strong. Cruel as Death, it's a 5. And flexibility, yeah, there's really no reason not to play it. And its combat is extremely flexible, so it's also a 5. So 15 points total, it goes straight up to S. Alright, Dreadful Spells. Dreadful Spells. Being able to attack with a Palantir is extremely strong. It does take some setup, but the setup is kind of irrelevant, really. Like, it might be a little awkward with your starting Nazgul, because it just means you've hard committed every single Nazgul to one place. But assuming you've mustered some at some point with either a card or just straight mustering, which I think is usually a good idea, it's very easy to put in effect, and it's sneaky. So not only is it a free attack with a Palantir, it's an attack that they can't play cards against. It just doesn't technically count as an attack. So, if Gandalf is sitting there with 1 elite or something, Gandalf the White, and you could press or stop the combat and then try Dreadful Spells. You can't Heroic Death that, can you? And you hit on 5s. So it's a combat that's free, and it's better than a standard Stronghold battle. Very strong. I give Dreadful Spells a 5. Shadow cards are very good, so there might be a lot of 5s. Now the combat, that's a different story. Devilry of Orthanc, yeah, it's a decent effect. It's basically the exact same effect. It's just instead of Nazgul, it wants you to have Isengard units. The effect is good. It's not the greatest, but it has the upside of not giving a benefit to free people. But so I would think a 4. Or no, I would start with a 3, I think. The effect itself. And then it would go up to a 4 because it doesn't give free people any benefit, but it requires an Isengard unit, which is limited. It's pretty much strictly Lorien, Rohan, Rivendell, and Northwest if you go for it. Unless you play, you have to kind of hunt for half orcs and goblin men if you want to play anywhere in Gondor or the Northeast. And Northeast is typically where all of the action is, so it's a little awkward. And if you want it in Lorien, you got to kind of put work in. You got to get that one dude from North Dunland in there. It's a little inconvenient. And also, it's very telegraphed. If they play character cards, both Cruel as Death and Devilry of Orthanc can be countered by advantageous position consistently. There's no downside to playing advantageous position against character cards, which free people should always do. If they play there terrible, so be it. But that's the only one. Like, all the other character cards don't actually give them a benefit to fighting. So 2 out of 3 of beneficial character cards for offense, excluding Balrog, of course, can be canceled by 1 strategy card. It's very consistent. So I give Devilry of Orthanc a 3. I think it's average. It takes some setup, but it is a decent effect. And then for the flexibility, the flexibility is a little rough because, again, both the effects require a certain condition to be met. Like when you draw dreadful spells, the board state could just make Devilry not possible to use. So Devilry kind of tanks the flexibility. The Nazgul are a little bit more easy. If you want the full 5, it takes a little more work, but not much. Like, it's not too bad. But the Devilry really hurts the flexibility, so I think I'll give it a 2. It's not 1, it's not god awful, but again, it's really Devilry kind of bringing it down. So overall, it comes up to a 10. So it's slightly above average. All right, we're up to the red tiles now, and yeah, the red tiles are gonna not like this ranking system. So give it to us. Yeah, this is just the 1 reveal stop, obviously. It's a good effect. It's red tiles. Sometimes you want them to hurt. Sometimes you want them to slow the fellowship down. And this is the second best for slowing them down. So its effect, I think I'll give a 4. So the benefit of red tiles, I'll get into this when I do my free people characters, is they're way better than blues. It's not even close, because not only do they hurt like hell, usually, they stop you. It's 2 effects. Blue tiles only give you 1. Now granted, I know Mordor's supposed to be big, scary, bad, smoke, evil fire, but so getting like no damage is a luxury. I get the theme of that, but if we're talking strictly strategic value, red tiles are way more beneficial than blues. So just for the stop and reveal alone, I think I give it to us a 4. Now for the combat, 1 for the Dark Lord, despite the completely metal name. Yeah, you're not going to be using this. Because even if you can use it, if you attack Rivendell, do you want to? Probably not. Like, when the extremely niche, difficult to accomplish combat requirement is happening, you're probably still not going to play it. That's how strong kind of the red tile is. Like, and the effect isn't that amazing. It helps, but you're giving up a lot. So I give the combat a 1. Good luck using it. And for flexibility, it's a 1. Like, there's no, I need a combat card right now. You can't even cycle this stupid thing. Very unlikely you'll be able to even cycle it. Its flexibility is a straight up 1. So this will end up going up to a 7 rating. So it is a D. Again, the card effect itself is a 4. It's above average. It's very good. But overall, as a card, like, I'm sure if you play enough, you'll be in a situation where you're desperately trying to cycle cards, get Cruel Weather, something. Like, when you draw this, and you cannot use that combat. You're basically just rolling 6s then. It's not flexible. You have to play it for its tile effect. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. On they went. Same thing. It does a lot of damage and it stops them. Doesn't reveal them. So, they both are, I think, even value. 1 is for speed. 1 is for ouchers. I'd give it a 4 and then a 1-1 once again. So it'll be the same rating at a D. The Ring is Mine. Yeah, the Ring is Mine hits different because not only is it basically the same thing as Give It to Us, but it's an I. So likely there'll be at least 2. So it just is better automatically. Like, there's no way it'll ever be less than 1. So it's at the very least always going to match this one, but likely it'll be even better. I think the one downside it has is it technically can be taken by Challenge of the King. But again, that's an extremely niche downside. And that's if it gets taken from that, that's awesome. I know we're talking strategic value here, but that's just cool. I mean, I wouldn't even be mad. It takes so much setup and risk. Yeah. So I would give Bring His Mind a 5 for sure, and then 1-1 once again. But that will bring it up. Oh no, it won't. I lied. Math. It's still a 7, so it goes right with his friends. Shelob's Lair. Basically, it's just the slightly better version of On They Went, but it's the gamble version. It can roll a 1, it could roll a 6. I think overall, statistically, you should roll a 3, so it makes sense to me that, you know, I think I'd give it a little higher because it has that likelihood of rolling higher. So I think I'd give it a 5 on its effect, and then 1-1, so off it goes to the D ranking. They're all friends. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to bother putting these things in order like this. Like, technically, these are 7s while these are 6s. Just kind of an overall broad statement where you can look at this and say, look at the cards you draw and be like, okay, which ones have value? Which ones are even worth keeping? Stuff like that, if it helps newer players. Nazgul Search. Right, this effect is extremely strong because it's almost similar to Cruel Weather. Of course, this depends if Strider's the guide. Strider's the guide doesn't hurt as much, but not only can you get a easy stronghold tile draw from it, you can. It also doubles as military. It's extremely dice efficient. They move once. You finish an attack at a stronghold. Time to move somewhere else. Well, why not just reveal the fellowship while I move somewhere else, and I can use a Palantir. It's nice. It's options. It's flexibility kind of in terms of just military and corruption. It helps. And again, if Strider is not the guide, this card is basically Cruel Weather. It makes them waste another character dice to do something. Another character dice spent to get to Mordor. So I would give Nazgul Search a 4 on its effect. I think it's very strong, again, for multiple purposes. Now, let's get into the combat. The Foul Stench is out of order a little bit. Foul Stench. So, Foul Stench is... Yeah, Foul Stench, it's a good effect, but the effect actually mattering in the long... Like, in a fight it's not often. So Foul Stench, if you don't know, if you match their leadership or exceed it, you cancel the Free People's leadership roll. So the reason Foul Stench gets a little tricky is because normally it doesn't really accomplish anything. Like, yeah, you might save 1 die that they're rolling, but if you're going against Free People military or just even the hard focused companions into like their final stronghold or something like that, if it's like Aragorn and Boromir and Minas Tirith, they have 5 leadership, and you just cancel it, very strong. And it counters cards like Mighty Attack, stuff like that, so they can't get free hits with cards like that. So it has value if you're fighting companions. The problem is you very rarely do fight companions, and that's where downside comes from. I will say, though, it's nice having a card that cycles and at least does something. Yeah, you cycle for something better, and it at least does something a little, but it doesn't help your offense. So overall, I think it's average. I think I'd give it a 3. Flexibility-wise, Nazgul Search, it's actually not flexible whatsoever. So the problem with Nazgul Search is kind of the whole they have to be 1 step or higher, which it can surprisingly be kind of awkward. Also, to use it efficiently, it's a little awkward because the timing has to be perfect. You know, if they keep getting revealed, which is good for you. But again, we're talking about card strength here. Say you finish a stronghold, great. I need to move Nazgul. I have a Palantir. So the Fellowship moves a second time that turn because they already moved once. They get revealed. Well, shit, now I can't move Nazgul because they have to be on step 1 or higher. Also, if you draw this card while they're in Mordor, it does literally nothing on the top effect, which is very bad. The combat is, again, not really gonna win you anything. It's easy to cycle. Like it's easy to play. So I think overall, it's like I think a 2. Again, it can be awkward to use, and if you just draw it late, or it's just a game where they don't get revealed too. Like there's you can technically play this card while they're in Rivendell. You just don't get the reveal part. I have done that before, but not the greatest use of it. So overall, it's a 4, 3, and 2, so it'll go up to a 9. So Nazgul Search is a C. It is slightly below average overall strength. Let's go down here to the other foul stenches. Black Captain Commands. Yeah, I think the effect is just a straight up 5. It's ring wraiths, but you're sacrificing 1 army move technically, or half army move. But being able to recruit 2 Nazgul on the Witch King, if you draw this card early, those 2 Nazgul are just going to help you so much. It basically preserves. I think you should always muster Nazgul. Maybe it's less of a base game thing. I just prefer the flexibility of it, especially if you're trying to hunt the Fellowship. Maybe if they're not revealed, you don't bother. But again, for their terrible and cruel as death, it's nice having those extra bodies. And sometimes you just roll characters and you really wanted to attack something. Yeah, Black Captain just recruiting 2 right away. Beautiful. And it also gives you that alpha strike of, okay, the Lamrout's under siege. I have Emer Hill, but there's no leadership there. Well, now there is. Sorry. There's leadership here now, and I'm attacking you. So, tough stuff. Yeah, definitely give this thing a 5. For sure, Black Captain. Very good card. It's combat. Again, foul stench, so it's a 3. Flexibility wise, I think this card's very flexible, unlike Nazgul Search, which requires so much requirements. Like, you just play this card. It takes some setup. Not really setup. It's kind of the wrong word. It's a little dramatic, but it's easier to do the second effect than the first one. I almost always try to use it for the first effect, get those 2 Nazgul. But if it's late game, it doesn't really matter, really. But very flexible card. Again, very easy combat to play. It doesn't do much, but again, this is just on the flexibility itself. It's easy to cycle. So it's easy to play, basically, is what I'm saying. Like, you just need Nazgul in the fight. So I think flexibility-wise, it is a 5. So that will bring its rating to a 13. So Black Captain Commands is a A. AA. And then we go to Wormtongue. Oh boy. Yeah, Wormtongue, you can take Rohan settlements without activating the nation. Yeah, so you're getting Witch King turn 2, 3. Hope you draw this card in the first 2 turns of the game, your first 2 draws, because otherwise it does literally nothing. Also, the effect itself is pretty mediocre too. In theory, if the free people didn't have 3 different cards, I guess 2.5 in case Gondor's not activated. This card would be better because you're always moving Edoras to West Eminent and then to Helm's Deep. So sneaking around and taking Edoras sounds great, but if they have any of those 3 cards, that's what, a 1 in 8. Yeah, 1 in 8 right when the game starts to draw that one of those cards, and then those odds go up every turn. Yeah, so I'm about to take Edoras. Thank God for Wormtongue, and then here comes Riders of Theoden to just get in your way, and the card does nothing. So terrible card. It's a 1, not even close. Foul Stench is a 3. Flexibility wise, if it's not obvious, it's a 1. Wormtongue has extremely limited use. It can only be used in the beginning, and it doesn't. Flexibility wise, you basically always use it for Foul Stench, almost always. So the old Wormtongue comes out to a 5. Goes straight to F. So far, the red tiles are, again, I got to keep reminding myself, like, it feels weird to see all the red tiles so low on the list, but again, those combat effects are god awful. And sometimes you just get stuck with bunch of army dice. Yeah, those aren't helping you then. So, but again, overall, I think this is accurate so far. I think the rating system's actually coming out pretty good here, for me at least. Floxacrabane, right? You get an extra +1 in your hunt roll, pretty bad. Yeah, it would need like a second effect to be worth wasting a die on. Because if you think about, yeah, I can't think of any time this card's actually done anything good. Like in Lords, you play it for Wind of the West, so free people can't look in your hand and take something better. This is like it being a bad card is to your advantage in Lords. I don't think that would buff it, but that's the only use I can really see for it. Yeah, not great. It's a 1. They are terrible. So they are terrible is you sacrifice 1 Nazgul leadership and then you get a +1 to hit on your leader reroll. Not as good as Cruel as Death, because if you yeah, it's not as good. Technically it's immune to advantageous position. I suppose that's one advantage it has. Yeah, I'm trying to think, like, I guess technically it is easier to use because you're only sacrificing 1, so that is a benefit. Like, it's still good. Yeah, I think I would give. They are terrible. See, well, the problem with they are terrible is you need extra Nazgul 100%, because if you only have 5, you always lose value. Cruel's Death is similar in a way. Technically, with Cruel's Death, you need 6 for it to be worth it. They're terrible, you need 5. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, with They Are Terrible, again, it's immune to advantageous. I think it's actually, I think it's a 5. I think it's fair to judge it the same as Cruel as Death overall. Yeah. And then for flexibility, technically, technically it's a flexible card. It's easy to play. Like it's easy to play the card and to use the card. The effect sucks, but it is a flexible card. Uh, but the event is so bad that like that flexibility, despite it technically being possible, similar to Balrog, like you could technically play Balrog even if the fellowships pass Moria. There's no reason to do that. It's a waste, but you could. But we're not getting that lawyery about it. Like Floxacrabane, you don't play it, so it's not very flexible. You're playing it for They Are Terrible, so I give that like a 2. So what, it was a 1, a 5, and then a 2. So 8. Surprisingly, goes up to C. It's just basically saved by its combat because it is a good combat. Again, if we're comparing They Are Terrible to strategy cards, it is not a 5. But again, we're doing it by this deck. Okay, next up is Foul Thing from the Deep. Right, so very similar to Isildur's. Foul Thing, it's not as good as Isildur's. So Isildur's was a 4 on its combat, or its card effect. I think Foul Thing would be a 3. Orc Patrol was a 2. Because Foul Thing does have a gimmick. It's just the gimmick is extremely unlikely to go off. So if you don't know, you draw a tile, it kills a companion. A random one. Sounds great. The problem is, it's a lot of luck. Not only do you can't draw an eye. If you draw a 3, and you eat Strider, that's good that you killed Strider. That's really lucky, but it was corruption efficient. If you draw a 1, that's the preferred effect, and draw Strider, then you just wasted 2 of their corruption. So you ate 3 of their health, and you did like almost like a bonus 2 technically in a way. So, but there's a lot of things that go into that. There's 2 hobbits. There's the 3 other companions. Foul Thing taking any of them doesn't really matter. It actually is a detriment to get a hobbit with this, unless you pull a 3, I suppose. Letting a hobbit roam free and get to strongholds and stuff, it could have a downside, but overall, it's a tile draw. Does what you expect. I'd say I'd give it a 3, right in the middle. It's not as good as the Seal Doors, but not as bad as Arc Patrol. They are terrible. Again, it's a 5. I think it's a great combat effect for character cards. Flexibility. It's flexible. You can play Foul Thing basically any point once they get revealed or any time in Mordor, and they're terrible. It's very easy to use. Takes a little setup for max efficiency, but it's easy to use. So I give it flexibility of 4. Yeah. So this will go up to a 12. So Foul Thing is an A, right up there with the Seal Doors. Okay. Lore of the Ring. The Lore of the Ring is I love this card to death. The effect. What I like about this card is it's very. You can kind of see how the game's going before you use it, and I think there's a big benefit to that. You have information. So, if the free people are taking randoms, and both, or at least one, but especially if both the hobbits leave the Fellowship, Lore of the Ring is great. You get revealed, you have that chance to do 3 corruption if they pull Strider. They probably won't kill Strider. Some people do, some don't. I guess it depends on where the game's kind of heading, board state. If it pulls any of the 2 companions, they're dead. Like they're always just gonna kill them. So you're basically just doing. It's almost like a consistent Foul Thing that doesn't involve the downside of drawing an eye. The downside to Lore of the Ring is, yeah, if you pull a Hobbit, it's like doesn't really do anything. I mean, it's good to get them out, I guess, but again, it has that downside of that Hobbit could go be a problem. If the Hobbit doesn't get anywhere productive, I still think it's probably a net gain, but could be worse. But yeah, being able to just kind of judge how the Fellowship's doing, is it just Gimli, Strider, and 2 Hobbits? Yeah, Lord of the Rings probably not going to be worth the play. But when they get to Gollum, it does 1 corruption. So that's very consistent. It's just 1 extra corruption. And that can definitely change the tide of the game. So I think Lord of the Ring is a 4. I think it would be a 5 with its effect because of just how consistent it is. Because it's guaranteed corruption, unlike a tile draw. But they need to be revealed to use it, which can be a little awkward. So I think a 4, and you could draw a Hobbit. So I think a 4 is fine. They are terrible, 5, as we discussed. And then flexibility-wise, this card is extremely flexible. Yes, they need to be revealed, but they will. This technically, it's possible, but they will be revealed at some point during the game. If it doesn't happen pre-Mordor, it's going to happen in Mordor. Unless if it's a game where they don't get revealed at all, no card is saving that one. But it's very flexible. And again, when they get the Golem, it just does damage, which is great. They are terrible is a great combat. So I think flexibility-wise, it's a 5. Excuse me, 5. So this Lord of the Ring gets a 14, so that actually goes straight up to S. Yeah, that might be debatable, putting Lord of the Ring in the same category as Cruel Weather, but again, not taking that gamble with the drawing the eyes and just doing corruption. Like, you just do it. Very amazing. And I like the thematic implication, too. In playing this in person, I'm always like, who's stealing it? Who's trying to steal it? Somehow, always seems to pull Boromir, which is amazing. All right, Grond, Hammer of the Underworld. Grond's fantastic. Yeah, being able to just have 3 free rounds, it can be the difference of winning a game. And you can, again, it's an attack with a Palantir. I don't really think there's much else to say about it. You can play Strife turn 1, and they can't do anything. No Daylights. No Brave Stand. Well, I guess they can Brave Stand it if companions are there. No Daylights. No Advantageous, which does hurt Deadly Strife. Yeah, they can't do anything about it. Turn 1. So I think it's a 5. It's very easy to set up. You just need the Witch King. If you're besieging a stronghold without the Witch King, something went wrong. Uh, Dread and Despair. All right, so we didn't talk about this one yet. So Dread and Despair, if you don't know, you forfeit Nazgul leadership, and that's the free people roll one die less for each one you forfeit. Dread and Despair is amazing. Now, it doesn't help you fight, but it kind of does in a way. Like, it doesn't, obviously, it doesn't get you hits, or it doesn't help you get hits, but if the free people's rolling one die in retaliation to you every time you get to roll your full dice, like, your army's not going to take hits. It's just going to stay at max value. Now, granted, you are forfeiting Nazgul, uh, but it's not the most often that you're fighting a stronghold with max die. So you attack Woodland Realm, they're rolling 2 dice. You attack Lorien, they're rolling what, 3? You only need to forfeit 2. You only need to forfeit 1 in Woodland Realm. Dol-Amroth, you only need to forfeit 2. You know, Rivendell, Christ, you only need to forfeit 1. Like, it's not as bad as you think. And if you muster Nazgul, if the mouth is involved, if wargs are involved, yeah, it's just an extremely safe card, and it preserves your army. Yeah, you're banking on 6s, but honestly, that's most of the game anyway. And for the character deck, it's pretty good. I think Dread and Despair is a 5 personally, and it will 100% save free people military attempts. If you attack, again, Aragorn, Boromir, Minas Tirith, maybe they got 3 extra units in there, they want to field battle you, play Dread and Despair. Good luck. It counters Andoril too. They try to play Andoril with Aragorn, you're not getting your 2 free hits because you're only rolling 1 dice. Very great card. Flexibility wise, I don't think it's even close. It's a 5. Dread and Despair is great to play. Even if you only have 5 Nazgul, I mean, hey, like, you should still have 2 or 3. You should roll 1/6 because that's all you're expecting anyway. And Grond, again, the Witch King needs to be in the fight. Again, he should be there anyway. So unless you're trying to get some cheeky stronghold out of nowhere, I think Witch King's usually there. It doesn't take setup to use Grond. It's just kind of an option you have. So Grond will go perfect 15. We'll go straight up to S. A lot of S's. Okay, next up, Breaking of the Fellowship. Yeah, Breaking is a unique cookie. That's for sure. So if you don't know, when you're revealed, you draw a tile, and the number is how many companions you separate. Unlike the other tile draw cards, there's technically 6 tiles that this does not work against because the 0 reveals do absolutely nothing. Some people say it's good to get them out of the pool. I mean, yeah, when they pull a 0 reveal in Mordor, that sucks for you as Shadow, but depends on the game. Sometimes you want more reveals in there, but yeah, starting the game off, there are 16 tiles. So 6 out of 16 with 3 and 8, slightly below a coin flip to do nothing. It's a very gamble heavy card. However, I think this is actually a very unhealthy card. I don't actually enjoy this card yet. Like, the theme is cool, but I feel like you separating companions with a character die is already that theme. Like, the whole point of I Will Go Alone is Frodo's going on his own. I don't like how swingy this card is. Usually it doesn't do much, but if it draws a 3, free people are going to have a hell of a time winning. Of course, usually if both hobbits are in, they both go, which isn't that crazy, but again, it's out of the free people's control completely, and out of your control too. It's just you're gambling. Yeah, I've had games where it's like Strider, Gimli, Legolas, they pull Breaking, they pull a 3. Wow. I just lost 7 health of corruption, and I'm still revealed without Strider. Like, it basically ends the game. That's just how swingy this card is. So I don't think it's a very healthy card because of that, because it screws one of you. But and it does 1 damage when Gollum's the guide, so it's consistent for that. I think due to its swinginess, I would have given it like a Yeah, I think it's like a 3. It's right there in the middle. It could basically do nothing or do a lot. Uh, but it has that risk of drawing eyes, so in Mordor, not a great idea to play it. Combat effect, Dread and Despair, 5. Flexibility wise, I would give it a 2 because they have to be revealed, and it also depends on how the hunt looks. If there's just 4 eyes and like 3 other tiles, you're not playing it. It's not flexible whatsoever. It also depends on the fellowship. If it's just like 2 hobbits and Legolas, it's not the greatest value. Why risk it? But it does do 1 damage when Gollum is the guide, and like we said before, that is extremely good. So I think it comes to average overall 3. So 2 3s and a 5. So we get to 11. So breaking is a B, slightly above average, mostly held up by its combat, which I think most people use it for anyway, which makes sense. Candles of Corpses. Very simple card. Just roll 3 dice, coin flips, hurt them. Very good. Sucks with Gollum, but if you don't, as long as you don't draw this card turn 9 or whatever, usually you can use it before. I would give it a 5 for that effect, just because of how simple it is. You just roll dice and you can do 3 damage. That's a lot. But it does have the downside of needing to be revealed. Yeah, so if you draw this card early and they just kind of get halfway to Mordor without getting revealed, like it's just sitting in your hand, it's a little awkward. But that's all. That's just like the other ones, Nazgul Search, all that. But I think you need to take that into effect. And again, if Gollum's the guy, it just kind of sucks. So I think with both those things combined, I think if it was just one, it'd be a 5 still. But I think with both of those things combined, it's a 4. I'm comfortable with that. It's definitely good, above average for sure. The combat is a 5. Flexibility wise, so again, I'm tempted to give it a 5, but yeah, I mean, I guess when I was talking about candles itself, I was kind of taking into account the flexibility. Well, again, flexibility is accounting for both. Like how, if it's in your hand, can you use it for an event and combat consistently? I think you can pretty consistently use Candles of Corpses. It's very rare that it just sits there and you can't play it. It happens, but it's rare. I think flexibility is a 5. So it comes up to a 14, so it goes straight up to S. Morgul Wound. Yeah, Morgul Wound's crazy. If they're 3 or below, you do 2 extra, or you do 2 corruption. If they're above 3, you only do 1. So it depends on the free people player and also just luck. Me personally, and a lot of top players, they try to get above 3 just because of this card, which says something. This card alone is making people put Frodo almost to half health. And yeah, when you get it off, it feels good. It hurts. A little awkward. A little awkward to use. Do you hold it and wait for them to try to Athelas heal, something like that, to do more damage, or do you just play it? But the effect it's not debatable. It's a good effect. I think I'd give it a 4. Just because, it's with breaking and Lord of the Ring, they have the potential to do more than 1 corruption. Morgul consistently is only going to get you 1. Black Breath. Yeah, Black Breath is pretty garbage. So Black Breath is if you get a hit on your leader reroll, you get to kill a leader. If you get more than 1 hit, you can kill companions if those hits equal their level. So if you roll 2 hits on your leader reroll, you can kill Boromir or Gimli or Legolas. If you somehow manage to roll 3 6s on your leader reroll, you can kill Gandalf the White. Well, you probably won't be doing a... Never mind. You can't play this against Gandalf the White. Aragorn. Yeah, so it's like a gambler's fallacy kind of card. It's like, there's that chance I can just kill Aragorn, even if he's in a friggin' 5 regular, 4 elite army. I can just wipe it. Like, good luck, because this isn't helping you. It's not giving you any benefit except for just you get rewarded for getting lucky. It's pretty bad, and the reward is minuscule at best. It's easy to cycle, I'll give it that, but its effect, unlike Foul Stench, which is also easy to cycle, that actually gives you a consistent benefit, even if it's small. This gives you basically nothing. It gives you benefit in the future, maybe. So it's an easy 1 for me. Black Breath is terrible. And flexibility-wise, they need to be revealed. So that hurts it a little. And Black Breath, it's easy to play. Yeah, but I don't know, it's tough because, like, you basically would never play Black Breath because of Mortal Wound. Black Breath is technically easy to play. I think Mortal Wound hurts it a little bit for the event because they have to be revealed, and it doesn't really do much unless they're at 3 or less. So flexibility-wise, I think I'll give Mortal Wound maybe a 2. Maybe that's a little harsh. I'm trying not to account like the combat effect itself into the flexibility part, but again, I just think that's disingenuous. Like, if the combat is really bad, how flexible is that card really? You know? Yeah. You would very rarely want to play Black Breath with it. So, yeah, I'd give it a 2. So 4 or 5. It was a 4, a 1, and a 2. So go up to 7. So shockingly, as a card overall, Mortal Wound is at a D. Mostly due to its combat. Nazgul Strike. I think this is fair to give us the same rating as Search, which was 4. I think it's the same concept, the same restrictions. It's not as good of an effect. So one part of it is not that great, but the other part is like unbelievably broken. And that is the eating a character card part. It's so strong that nobody will play character cards, with the exception of Axe and Bow and Horn of Gondor. But yeah, Mithril will never be played just because this card exists. So it's got a little fear behind it. I think that has value. So I'll give it the same rating, a 4. Black Breath. Yeah. 1. Flexibility wise, this one, same concept. Black Breath is just not very good to play ever. You'd rather use Nazgul Strike. So you're in a real damn pickle when they're in Mordor, because this card is actual garbage when they're in Mordor. You can't use the top effect at all, and you're stuck with Black Breath. This is the worst card to draw when they're in Mordor. So flexibility is a 2. No, it's a 1. Yeah, it's a 1. So it gets a 6. So Nazgul Strike goes into D. Yeah, most of its value comes from just the fear of it, but it can be countered. They just don't play Mithril. Simple. Lidless Eye. Yeah, everybody's favorite. It's a 1. It sucks. Turning 3 of your dice into eyes is not great. Even when you Hail Mary it, very often they'll just wait it out, because you can only play Lidless Eye once. Like, I'll eat the 1 corruption. If you made half the hunt pool kill me with Lidless Eye, I'm just gonna eat 1 corruption and move next turn. Like, that's how bad this card is, because you're giving up 3 of your other dice. Now, if your military's great, and you're at 9 points, you just need to attack a city or something. Yeah, it has value, but that is an extremely specific and niche scenario, and it still has the potential for them just not to draw an eye. So it's a 1, not even close. Draw it early, you're not happy, because you're not using it pre-Mordor, and you're not using it in the beginning of Mordor. It's strictly at the very last turn of the game. The combat, Words of Power. So Words of Power is interesting. It's very similar to Nazgul Strike, where the threat of Words of Power sucks. Uh, Andoril is a great combat effect for free people, but Words of Power alone, there are 3 of them in the deck. They will scare Aragorn from using it, because Words of Power lets you cancel a companion. Cancels their Captain of the West, cancels their leadership. So, yeah. I've had fights where I throw Gandalf to Minas Tirith for the final stand, and they just happen to have all 3 Words of Power in their deck, and Gandalf doesn't do anything, and then they roll 30 dice with hitting on 6s. Like, it's a strong card. Canceling Gandalf is strong. So the effect when it's in play is fantastic. However, for it to be in play, there needs to be a companion. That's not common, so it pushes it down. I think it's average. I think it's a 3, and it's easy to play. You just need a Nazgul in the battle. So you don't even need like this forfeit leadership. You just play it. They don't even need their leadership. So being able to play against Gandalf's pretty nice. So I give it a 3. Flexibility wise, 1. Card sucks. Again, Lidless Eye, top effect can only be played the very last turn of the game, if not like, or like the second to last sometimes. So Lidless Eye comes out to a 5. Straight to F. Sounds good to me. Worn with Sorrow and Toil. This card is unfair. This card is just mean. I don't mind it in Lords as much because there is a way to get rid of it with Wind from the West more consistently, instead of trying to finagle your way into a stronghold. It's a very mean card. And anytime Shadow plays it, you just seem to always draw Mithril, and there's another way right away. Yeah, it's a 5. It's just too strong for its own good, honestly. I guess its effect isn't crazy. I just think it's not a very fun effect. Like, when you're free people and they play this turn 1, you're like, well, all the dead men have done Harrow, and, House of the Stewards, and We Prove the Swifter, all the fun cards that let you do things, it just eats, and it's like, okay. Maybe if it had like some like either eat a random character card or take 1 corruption, maybe I wouldn't mind it as much. I don't know, just some options for free people, because it's just, you can't really get rid of it. The best way to get rid of it is to separate companions. Yeah. Just like let them get it off maybe twice total, so it doesn't really accomplish much. But the value Shadow gets for just 1 dice playing this card is insane. Yeah, maybe if it had the whole like spend a ring and a dice thing going on, it wouldn't be as bad, but I don't even think that'd be worth it. I don't know. It depends on the cards, I guess. It's just having the Declare and a Stronghold to get rid of it is so niche. So it's a 5. Words of Power, still a 3. Flexibility wise, I think it's a very flexible card. I think I'd give it a 4. Words One with Sword and Toil can be just played. You can play it right away if you want. Words of Power is very easy to use. Granted, the odds of it actually doing anything are low. Kind of similar to Black Breath, but unlike Black Breath, if there's a companion in that fight, it's doing a really good thing. Black Breath still doesn't do shit ever. So it's better. I give it a 4. So what, 5, and then it was 2, or sorry, 3. So 11. So Warm Star Toil is a B. Last card, Ring Rates Are Abroad. Yep, so I think it's just as good as Black Captain for different reasons. I think it's a 5. You're getting an attack with a Palantir. You get to move your Nazgul. It's just more versatile than Black Captain. I think that makes up for the lack of the recruitment, so I'd still give it a 5. Words of Power is a 3 still. Flexibility. It's a very flexible card. Yeah, I mean, I gave with Warren, Sar, and Toil a 4. I think it's the same thing. 4. Yep. So it comes out to 12. So it goes right next to Black Captain in A. So there is my final rating for the Shadow character cards. A lot of every category got a little action, which is fun. Overall, looking at it, I think the scoring system is pretty accurate. Now, I put my own opinion into a lot of the scores. Uh, I think the rating would be quite different if we were accounting strategy cards. Just because, like, they are terrible would not be a 5 combat effect if it was being compared to Deadly Strife. It'd be a 3 at best. But if we're just judging it strictly by the Shadow character deck, these are the cards that are valued extremely high, the ones you want to cycle to try to get. Because, again, like, they're just versatile. They're peak card. You can play it for the top effect for a great effect. You can play it for a great combat. One or the other. So there's no downside to having these cards. And then as you go down, that downside increases. Slightly, a little bit, moderately, a lot. You don't want it, basically. Yeah, so only 3 cards in the Shadow character deck that are just complete garbage. Never want them. They have almost no value. Balrog can be the exception, but again, it's completely out of your control. If it's so many times, it's a game where it's corruption. I'm cycling character cards best I can, and I draw Balrog, and it's the only character card I have, and it's upsetting because even if Lorien's dead, you were too efficient. You already killed Lorien. You cannot do anything with the card. The card is a dead card. That's ridiculous. That sucks. Like, even freaking Lidless Eye with Words of Power over here can still be cycled at least. I'll take Lidless Eye over Balrog. But that's the kind of gamble of it, because you get Balrog early game, it's extremely good. But that is my rating. I will do the rest of the cards eventually. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you liked the system. And if you think anything was kind of super off from my ratings, feel free to say. Overall, again, looking at it, I think this fits my personal opinion of all these cards. I think they're perfectly placed. Phlox of Kerbane maybe a little high, but it's not high. It's on the lower end. I think it's fair to put it with Nazgul's Search, just because of how difficult that can be to play, flexibility-wise. But that's it. Thank you guys for watching. Have a good one.